Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we're getting all around weird. We got a weird episode of The Simpsons. We're on this weird new platform called Twitch. I hope you've heard of it. I know it's not as popular as Get Vocal was, but surely some people will come along with us for the change, hopefully. But we're going to have a good time. We might have to sneak in through a toy horse or a condom. I'm not sure which. But either way, we're not doing it alone. That's right. As always, live here on Twitch now for the first time, kind of. It's getting convoluted. I don't know. I'm just going to throw it over to you, the co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I mean, Twitch isn't the only change we have today. Richie and Miles have new cameras and, you know, a little behind-the-scenes story
Thanks,
here.
Grandma.
Richie watches the episode when he gets off work at like 4 in the morning and then goes to bed and then literally rolls out of bed and turns his laptop on, which he did today. And with this new, I guess, HD camera, I've always been able to see like my bed head when I put my headset on, but it's so much more clear now that I actually kind of want to do my hair going forward. So maybe it's a change for the better, Miles.
It's hilarious that you say that because I was just looking at myself with my new setup. We are actually like over this direction and I'm looking at my show information over here. But when I just glanced up a minute, I'm like, wow, is it always that obvious that I just got out of the shower?
So I guess, yeah, technology has
HD,
its downfalls,
baby.
Miles. Technology definitely has its downfalls, but that's okay because we're here to talk about The Simpsons, which, despite popular belief, hasn't been on the downfall of late, I feel like, at least where we're at in the show. So, let me throw it back to you so we can get started. The man, the myth, he's a made-up country named France. He is Miles.
With no chance of winning or victory. We don't even have a word for it. No, so I agree with what you said about the season 13 has definitely been on an upswing. However, I did not like this episode. Like, not even a little bit, honestly. Like, there's a few places in this episode where I laughed, but more than not, I was bored during this episode. I watched it normal like I do, and then I watched it with the commentary, hoping for some insight, which I did get some insight that I was hoping for. When we get to the end, we'll talk more about that. But ultimately, I just did not care for this episode. And I'm thinking there is a good chance that your enjoyment of this episode is going to very much be affected by your familiarity with Shakespeare and the other works that they cover in this episode. And simply put, I'm just not that. Like, I know of the Odyssey and the Iliad, and like, I think some of the stories from them are interesting, but ultimately, it's never really been my jam. That sort of fantasy adventure thing has just not been my scene. And as far as Shakespeare goes, if it's not 10 Things I Hate About You, I'm probably not into it.
For the record, the Odyssey is not fantasy, Miles. That was historical documentation.
I'm sure. Yeah, 100% facts. Just like the Bible, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yes, I'm a big Shakespeare guy. I'm also a very, very big Greek mythology guy. So this episode should have spoken to me, but I feel like now that I've got an HD camera, I don't know if you can see it. I had to come up with things to write down because the Joan of Arc story ended and I looked at my notes and I was like, holy crap, I've written 2 things down. And I felt like they weren't giving each story enough time for stuff to happen, even though a lot happened in a short amount of time, if that makes sense at all. So I think the Shakespeare bit was probably the best. And if you would have told me the 3 stories they were going to do before getting started, I would have guessed that the Shakespeare story would have been my least favorite just because, you know, Shakespeare's a lot of talking. And funny enough, I'm saying all this, Hamlet's probably my favorite work of Shakespeare too. But I thought it was by far the best story out here, especially with Ralph being involved, and it's the massive amount of death at the end, which is, you know, actually what happens in Hamlet. All that was making me crack up.
That's fair. And again, I definitely there's a few places that definitely made me laugh, but frankly, probably the line of this episode was at the end when Bart is like, wow, this is amazing that a story where everyone dies can be so boring. I felt exactly the same way. And I knew it was a bad sign that literally both times I watched the episode without the commentary changes the vibe and the flow significantly, but both times that I watched this episode without the commentary, right after Homer's Odyssey segment ended, I was like, oh, there's more. Okay, cool. I wasn't like excited for more. Like it felt like I was like, wow, is this like not a complete episode yet? Because I'm kind of over this already.
I can totally understand that. I feel like they've gone to the 3-story format a lot more. And I know we talked about it a season or two ago where they're supposed to do like one episode of the season. I don't know. It feels like they're doing multiple episodes of the like tall tales, so to speak, now.
Well, and right off the bat, they do talk about that in the commentary. And for what it's worth, this commentary does feature Al Jean, Mike Anderson, Matt Selman, Tim Long, John Frank, Don Payne, Joel Cohen, and Matt Warburton. And they all basically talked about how when they first were told they had to do this, there was like a little bit of like, all right, whatever. But simply put, by this time, the Simpsons writers love these episodes. They have a lot of fun doing them. It's a change of pace for them. It allows them to explore some of their favorite literary works and like, shoehorn the Simpsons into them. So from their perspective, I could definitely see why they love this. And when I think they did even like the Bible stories and the Tall Tale stories and like the Huck Finn stuff, like those type of things I enjoyed significantly more than this one. And I think it's just simply because I have a lot more familiarity with the source material. This was not, I was never an English major type person. This was never my scene. I remember having my heels drugged through the Odyssey in like sophomore English class. And like, granted, I had a really shitty English teacher in high school. She was terrible and did not relate to me at all. If I could remember her name, I would. But she was the type of teacher where she still like wanted to be popular. So she was like always really friends with like the cheerleaders and whatnot. And like it was very like she was just very fake and phony and my least favorite type of person. And maybe it was just my distaste towards her that made me like turned off towards her subject in general. But I had her again senior year for psychology, and she was a total bitch then too. So honestly, I think she's just a bad teacher.
Yeah, because I had really good teachers for all this kind of stuff that really like got into the meat and bones of it and talked about it. And even if you're bored with all the words, they're really good at explaining everything. So that can make a huge impact.
I had a great teacher my freshman year English, but she was literally a first year out of college student. So she still had that like hunger and excitement and zeal. Like thirst, to like connect with the kids. And she was fantastic. She actually had us bring in like popular song lyrics, and like we would like for our English class, like a lot of times we'd like start the day by like going like you draw like somebody's favorite song out of like a jar or something, and you'd go through and like break down the sentence structure, and like she'd like pull lessons from like popular music, which I thought was really cool and a lot of fun. When I was doing the Odyssey Iliad stuff, I was just like, basically daydreaming in class about anything else but this, or probably admittedly,
where's my rock song?
I was probably playing some sort of game on my TI-83 at the time, if I'm being honest.
All were.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had a feeling like when I was watching this last night on the Hamlet portion when Lisa was on the screen and she was like, nobody's going to out crazy Ophelia. And she was going, nani, 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 and doing all her flips. I was busting out laughing because that's literally in the script on when Ophelia is talking. And like Ophelia has more than that, but like they summed up her role very quickly, but like it was very funny to me, and I was like, I bet this just goes like right over Miles's head, or like not goes over his head. I bet like he's just like, what the hell, this is stupid in this one part. It's so funny if you're Shakespeare people.
The only reason I got that reference is because it's the first thing listed on the IMDb trivia page. In the scene where Ophelia goes crazy and ultimately jumps out the window, she sings "Hey non nani nani hey nani," which is a direct quote from Hamlet. I did have to do the Hamlet soliloquy in high school, but that's the only part of Hamlet I ever...
To be or not to be?
Yeah, I did that all the way through, but outside of that one soliloquy, I never read Hamlet.
So, I read Hamlet in high school, and then in high school, they watched... our teacher put on a performance of Hamlet with Kenneth Branagh playing Hamlet. And... we saw just a few scenes of it, but our teacher said, hey, they do the whole script line by line. It's as long as actual play. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just want to introduce you guys to it a little bit. And when I went home a few weekends later, it was on TV, and I turned it on about halfway through, and I watched the whole second half of it, and I loved it. And I was so shocked because I was like, it's like a fucking 4-hour movie.
Wow.
Because they do all the lines, but Kenneth Branagh, who has Harry Potter ties, and he is the director of the first Thor movie, where he, like, if you look at Asgard in the first Thor movie, it has kind of a Shakespearean feel to it.
Interesting.
And Kenneth Branagh did such a good job as Hamlet. Like, I was hanging on every word he was saying. And back then, that's when I wanted to be an actor, too. So, like, I was paying attention to how people were performing and what they're actually doing. And he wrote me in, and I thought, if you can take something that's regarded as boring, like Shakespeare, and make people, like, drawn into it, I think that speaks high about somebody's ability to perform. And I was just like, yeah, I think Hamlet might be my favorite work.
I mean, honestly, that's really, really cool to hear that you had that type of connection, because I literally had the opposite of that. Quick shout out, since this is our first time on Twitch, we've actually got Ducky hanging out with them. What's up, Ducky? Good to see you, man. Yeah. Hopefully, we don't have any technical difficulties as we get into this episode of The Simpsons. But while the writers of this episode absolutely love this concept now, they get really into these 3-story things, the animators do not feel the same, because it is significantly more difficult for them to make these shows. However, they did talk about the technology changes a lot, which we've already had several episodes where we've discussed that this season. But at this point in time in The Simpsons is when they were essentially switching from ink and pen to digital completely. And there's still a lot of leftovers in this season, but this episode was done digitally, and it was mostly for things like the relief that was brought to them when they got a tool that allowed them to add mustaches to random characters. So, for instance, in the scene in Joan of Arc, where Lisa is talking to the crowd, where she's like, maybe instead of shooting people, we could shoot rocks in the catapult. They literally could just go and more or less do like a point and click type of situation where they could, add mustaches or little subtle feature changes and things like that, which I'm sure you can imagine just makes night and day difference when it comes to trying to make these changes in a huge group scene like that.
So you're saying they had like stock French guy, but then stock French guy with mustache, stock French guy with shaved head and mustache?
Yeah, that's pretty much, it's like the villains in Streets of Rage. You just have like a mohawk color change is really all that has to happen. But this episode, while it might not be my favorite, we're still going to give it the same top to bottom treatment that we like to do on this show here, Best Darn Diddley style. So we are talking about Tales from the Public Domain, which originally aired on March 17th in the year 2002, moving right along.
Dang.
The chalkboard gag for this episode is vampire is not a career choice, which I feel like they were a little bit jumping the gun on this one, because if they would have waited a decade, vampires got insanely in again. Like when True Blood and Twilight and everything was coming around, I'm pretty sure that was a respectable career choice.
No, I hear it sucks.
Nice. I also very much love the couch gag on this one. I don't know if it surpasses the boat one that came up a few episodes. That, I think, is still my favorite, where they like jump off of a boat and somehow end in their living room and have the boat they jumped off of as the frame behind them. I still love that. Which
might be the third or fourth time Miles has described that.
I'm going to keep talking about it until they do a better one, Richie. That's on them, not on me. But this is a great one, too. At least
you're clear on this one. It's not like, this is definitely, without a doubt, my favorite line.
My third favorite, fifth couch gag. Yeah, for sure.
This is the most sure of anything you've ever been in your whole life.
That's accurate. And I made a lot of lifelong decisions. I have tattoos, but it's fine. There's also a couch gag on this one, which I said already, but I like that it's a flip book, and it's actually a actual pencil drawing, like pencil on page, and there's real human hands that actually like flip through it, essentially, only instead of blank Post-its like I'm flipping now, it actually shows the Simpsons like running into their living room, doing the whole couch gag stuff. I wish, and I was frustrated that it didn't say, I wish it would have told me whose hands those were, because I have no idea.
I just always assume they're Matts.
We start out the episode where the Simpsons are on the couch, and specifically Homer sitting on the couch, and he gets a letter from the library notifying him of an overdue book, which he declares is the biggest frame-up since OJ. Wait a minute. Blood in the Bronco? The cuts on his hands? Those Jay Leno monologues? Oh my god, he did it! Oh, here's the book. He goes through a lot of emotional range there.
But he connects the dots.
As he connects the dots that OJ was in fact guilty.
8 years later, however long it's been at this point.
Yeah, I think 8 years is spot on, yeah. But yeah, they discover that he had checked out the book Classics for Children, which is somehow still sitting right next to the couch, just covered in dust. Homer explains that he had intended to check it out when Bart was born, because he was going to read to him every day.
What happened?
Stuff kept coming up. Mostly car-related. Piece of crap.
Why don't you read this to us now?
I decide who reads and when. How about now? And we realize pretty quickly that we are, in fact, in a mini-story episode, and we're going to start with the segment Homer's Odyssey.
I want to say, before you get going on this, as a kid, and even as an adult, I'll even throw this in there, I get upset when I go, oh, it's one that's not about the actual family. It's a retelling of a story. Like, typically, especially as a child, I can't stress that enough, I was upset when these kinds of episodes were coming out. I don't know why, but in my mind I thought, I need the main story to progress and go further, even though they reset every week. But it was always like man, we're doing one of these. So
I kind of get that, honestly. Like, that connects to me to an extent. I think sometimes they're really good. Like, for instance, I don't know why it's so much better when they do the Treehouse of Horror, for instance. Like, why is it in my mind that is
Halloween? It's a big deal.
True. That is like the exception to the rule, I suppose. But ultimately, it's just like, I get so excited when it's that, but I get so frustrated when it's something like this, essentially. It's a fine line for me.
I was frustrated when the Halloween specials would come on as a kid, too.
Were you really?
Like, oh, yeah.
That was my absolute
this doesn't
favorite.
matter. Like, whatever they do here doesn't matter. Where, like, when Lisa becomes a Buddhist or a vegetarian, that matters, Miles.
Well, I guess when they keep it as canon, you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I can't argue with those facts.
I felt like we were missing out on great storytelling things that could be happening with the main family in the quote-unquote real world. Which, the point of me saying all this is that, like, none of it matters. What's the big deal? Just enjoy the show.
Yeah, and I guess that at the end of the day is true of any entertainment, and therefore, I guess we should just end the podcast now. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was nice joining you, Twitch.
Peace out, Cub Scouts.
All right, so we see that we're going to start out with Homer's Odyssey, which right away on the commentary, they pointed out that there have been tons of magazine articles over the years written about The Simpsons, and a shockingly high percentage of them are always called Homer's Odyssey. Like, that is just like the most popular magazine title when they do anything about The Simpsons and media and whatnot, which I think is kind of fun.
All those grad students are super impressed with themselves for coming up with that title.
Yeah, they're probably all patting themselves on the back. You're right. We open up this episode. It's an epic tale from ancient Greece. Oh my goodness, I'm all over the place right now because of reasons that we decided not to talk about. We start at the end of the Trojan War, where clever Odysseus has come up with a plan to destroy the Trojans once and for all.
Odysseus.
I will say
that's a hard one to do.
That's a hard diddly Odysseus. Like, this is the type of stuff I will say I love about these episodes, when they are able to take a character like Flanders and then kind of put his template over this concept so that you get the silly
and
Flanders and add a mustache, which they can do digitally now. But he basically mutters, or I think it's Homer at this point, "Stupid king of Troy. I think I speak for all the Greeks, and I say this war has gone on for too long."
I'll say.
He just wants to go get his mail. Homer's like, anyway, over torture, one of your soldiers mentions that you collect giant wooden animals. We sure hope you don't have a horse.
Well, I don't have one from you.
And so
Bring it in!
He is invited in, and we're essentially getting the story of the Trojan horse, which immediately Al Jean points out is like the one story that isn't even in the Odyssey. They're talking about parodying the Odyssey, and this is actually from the Iliad, which takes place after the war that is featured in the Odyssey. Also, this feels like the appropriate platform to bring up, and I'm sure I cannot be the first person to think this thought, but wouldn't Trojan actually be a terrible idea for a condom? Like, doesn't that imply that, like, you would basically, like, fill the condom with jizz, insert it, and then, like, the jizz would, like, make its way out in the middle of the night? Like, isn't that what, like, Trojan would imply? Am I the only one that feels this way? I'm saying use the other brand is what, we need a sponsorship deal from whatever brand of condom is Durex, that's who it is.
Nah, they should have come up with the Myrmidons, which is like that Special Forces Brad Pitt group of Trojan soldiers. They weren't the Trojans. The Brad Pitt group of soldiers that went in there, the Myrmidons, because they always get the job done.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we're starting our first episode of Best Darn Diddly on Twitch, starting about jizz. This feels like an appropriate way to say hello to the world. And you can do that now, Richie, with your HD camera. You can say hi, everybody.
I can wave my hand.
Everybody. We used to have these weird, like, tracer things that would go across because of our slow ass cameras. I recently found out when upgrading my computer that the camera that I had is like the best quality camera that was made by far in the year 2007, which means it was not keeping up super well. Anyway,
that's pretty fun. I'm trying to keep up with the chat now because that's something that happens when you have a Twitch channel now. So.
Yeah, we're gonna get used to it. Duck is excited about the jizz and the HD cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Not in that order necessarily, but probably. So, of course, what we get is the Trojan horse story, where instead of the Trojan army, in this case, it is all of our favorite Simpsons characters. Such as Homer, Lenny, Carl, Moe, etc. I think that's the only recognizable ones, actually, and everybody else is like a barfly. I might be wrong. But regardless, they sneak out into the middle of the night, and I think it's Moe who's like, he sees like the soldiers snoring. He's like, oh, look at them, sleeping like little angels. Spare no one!
Just because their heads are off, it don't mean they're dead.
So after slaughtering this entire army, Odysseus is excited because he can return to Ithaca and his sweet wife, Penelope.
Odysseus, do not forget to thank the gods for our victory with an appropriate animal sacrifice.
Forget it. Sacrificing animals is barbaric.
Oh, those Greek gods don't like that.
Now have the slaves kill the wounded. And we actually cut to the gods who are like super petty about the whole situation.
They were always super petty, Miles.
That's true. That's kind of their MO. That's where the Christian God got it from.
I was like, to me, that's more realistic to assume that all the gods are petty.
Yeah, that's fair. They want to make it all about them. They're literally just a bunch of open mic comics is all the gods are. They're somehow given the spotlight when they shouldn't be, and they make it all about them. Speaking from...
And they turn into animals to get with chicks.
That's it. True story. Chuckle fuckers specifically. But no sacrifice. We'll teach that mortal to trifle with the gods. I got it.
You fat lush.
And I think
just destroyed Atlantis.
They like stab at the globe, right?
But what happens is Barney is Dionysus. So Barney's like, yeah, I'll handle this. And he picks up one of Zeus's lightning bolts and just randomly throws it down. And you don't see what hits, but you hear an explosion. And then Quimby, who's Zeus, comes back saying, you fat lush, you just destroyed Atlantis.
Okay, I can already tell I'm going to enjoy reviewing this episode more than I'm going to enjoy watching this episode, because I can tell, like, your excitement level about all these nerd people, like, that you are connecting the dots to.
It's great that they made Barney Dionysus. Like, it makes total sense. Think of like
so glad.
Think about the whatchamacallit robot from Futurama. Like, that's Dionysus.
Like the gluttony bot or whatever, the one that just like
hedonism
bot. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
That's like Dionysus, basically.
I like how they call him out. They're like, "Where's the Zeus who used to turn into a cow and pick up chicks?"
He grew up. Maybe you should too. Poseidon, you take care of Odysseus.
I will say, even I get the perfect casting of the sea captain as Poseidon. Yar, I'll send him far. Of course.
Which is funny in itself because they have to make little effort and they're just like, we're going to make this mildly inconvenient for you instead of, killing you and whatnot.
Right. Greece is the word. Is it vase or vase? You're going to be asking the whole trip.
Gentlemen, I must be wasted because it looks like that cloud is mad at me.
Yar! Yar! We get that they're going through like the angry sea. There's literally like a aggressive cloud like attacking them, but they see relief in the sign of sirens singing, and they have an opportunity for hot sex that will leave them perspiring. Hey, that's kind of catchy.
It's coming from that island.
Let's steer heedlessly towards it.
Heedlessly it is.
We get a fun little sea shanty, we'll call it.
Yeah, you're good. You want to do this one?
Alright, the feta is cheesy, the sirens are easy, boy if they kiss as good as they lure, wow! On the island we'll sex you up, islands of sirens, oh god! Oh, then it jumps into, the song is rudely interrupted because they see the sirens, while they sound lovely, they are in fact Patty and Selma. They immediately are like, oh god, they're hideous! And they're like trying to, one of them literally is like, I'm gonna gouge my eyes out. Frink is like, save me from the ladies, Calvin.
It's been so many years since I've seen your father. Oh, that's Penelope.
This just randomly cuts back to Marge as Penelope, who is like longing for her husband, Odysseus, or home Odysseus, if you will.
I hope he's still in the magnificent physical specimen he was when he left. And she holds up a picture where he's got this long, luxurious blonde hair, and he's super muscular looking.
It's almost like the scene where Homer looks at himself in the the mirror, and like he sees himself like flexing and shit. It's almost that type of difference to reality. But
you got to assume that Homer did a really good job in the Battle of Troy, because if he got that much weight over the course of 20 years, that means he had lots of spoils of war, I would assume.
Yeah, dude, he's eating for sure. But Lisa is a little more practical. She encourages her mom that after 20 years, maybe it's time to choose a new suitor. And just on cue, we get the Disco Stew music cue playing.
Disco Stew has a ouzo for tuzo.
I'll leave you guys alone.
Disco Stew was talking to you.
And I just realized how I messed up this whole scene, because that was
Bart.
not Lisa.
Yeah.
That was Bart, and this is creepy, dude.
They have been like sexualizing the Simpsons slightly over this season in a few scenes.
Well, in this case, Disco Stew is directly sexualizing Bart, which again is historically accurate. I'm guessing. Richie can probably tell us for certain, but it seems like that is the joke: is that in this era in Greece, a man on the hunt like Disco Stew would be very interested in a 10-year-old boy, which is creepy as fuck by every other standard.
There's definitely loving of the young strapping gentleman back in ancient Greece times. I don't know if it was 10 years old, but would you really be shocked if it was?
Yeah, I mean, not really, right? And again, it's a completely different situation than what I don't know how many thousands of years ago is what I'm trying to
I was going to say, don't try and justify.
I'm not justifying anything. Not even a little bit. I am trying to at least say they're trying to make a joke about the historical accuracy of it.
That's kind of what I got from it, so.
Fair enough. Justify, Ducky says. Yeah, go ahead, buddy. That's going to be a fun one. After this quick joke, we cut back to Homer, or Home Odysseus, who is trying to get back to his wife and who is home. But right as he's getting close, the gods fuck with him again, and they think they just like splash him to another island or poke
I think
him.
they flick him.
Flick him, yeah. They do something, and it's just like, ain't I a stinker? Very Bugs Bunny-esque right there.
But I mean, I did enjoy how they did a few points of the Odyssey. I was hoping they would do a Cyclops moment.
I remember the Cyclops. I thought the Cyclops was a cool part. They had to like fight it or whatever. And if I remember right, they fight the Cyclops right before they meet Circe in the book or whatever.
Yeah,
in the story.
I believe it's been a long time since I've read it, but I believe you're right because when they leave there, they're kind of starving and they get to the island with all the animals because of Circe.
Yeah, well, yeah, isn't it like all the pigs or whatever?
Mm-hmm. All the crewmen.
Fair enough. We arrive at the island where we see Circe the sorceress, and Homer's like, boy, who decided to give every weirdo an island?
You must be thirsty. Drink from my cauldron.
And she gestures towards a bubbling, like, witch cauldron that's clearly poisoned, complete with, like, grown human skeletons dangling over it as if it was the last thing they did was drink from it. But everybody's like, yay, I was in the mood for something bubbling.
Out of the way, Slim.
And they all rush to take a drink and then immediately start turning into swine. Fun little note, though, real quick from IMDb. In this segment, Tress MacNeille is playing the voice of Circe, and in the episode Home Sweet Homer, which is an episode of DuckTales in 1987, she actually also played Circe in the DuckTales parody of this same story.
Very nice. So familiarity with the role.
Yeah, she's getting to come back and explore it in a new environment.
There you go. Homer's looking forward to exploring this new environment.
Homer kind of dodged Homer kind of dodged a bullet because he comes like exhausted and pulling up to the rest of his crew. Like, thanks for the help with the anchor, guys, but there are no guys to be found. There are only pigs. To which Homer points out, "Hey, that pig looks like Lenny."
Oh.
So he just starts eating it and declares, "That's the next best thing to eating, Lenny."
And then you all of a sudden, like it's, minutes in the future and there's 4 pig corpses around him where you just see bones.
And Circe is even kind of disgusted at this point. "Didn't you eat enough of your friends?"
Those are my friends?
I've been saying that for hours.
That's it. I'm going home. Which way to Ithaca?
And it is told to Homer that this is not going to be an easy journey as he will have to pass through the river Styx. And that goes straight through Hades. Though this is not the Styx and the spelling that you would expect it. Much like Madison from the most recent episode of She-Hulk, the N is not where you'd expect it to be. Or the Y is not where you expect it to be. In this case, it's the river Styx.
Get it right, Miles. She's the national treasure.
That week. Yeah, that's true. That episode aired weeks ago at this point. It's fine. The river Styx is actually the band Styx, and we see Homer is suffering as he's going through hearing, "You're my lady, lady." Boom. Nailed that. Did you know I'm going to be in a musical?
This truly is hell.
He does in fact make it, though. Again, it's been 20 years now since Marge has been waiting for Homer to return. And at this point, she's even starting to be like, I guess it has been 20 years, and the suitors sure have been very patient.
When we came here, Helen of Troy was hot. Now look at her.
This face has launched 1,000 ships. The other way.
It's Agnes, Skinner's mom.
Yeah. Honey, I'm home.
Which is kind of funny because Helen of Troy is the reason the Trojan War started, so she wouldn't even be there, but that's okay.
See, that's the type of nerdy shit you wouldn't get if you just didn't listen to this episode or read in high school.
Well, look who the fates dragged in.
Oh, I'm sorry I was gone so long, but I'm going to do something I haven't done for 20 years. Take out the trash. And he's basically motioning that he's going to beat up all these suitors that have been hitting on his hot wife since he's been gone for 2 decades. Sweet Penelope.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to let you finish. His line is, "Sweet Penelope, you're just as beautiful as you were when I left."
Oh, I can't stay mad at you.
Aww. And then Penelope, or Marge, if you will, asks her husband, "Brave Odysseus, it's been 20 long years. Please regale me with the tales of your adventures."
It's suffocating me. I'm going to Moe's.
And he slams out of the door, leaving his wife that he just saw for the first time.
Which Moe's dead. He ate him. So I don't know who's running the bar.
I think he is. It's free beer at Moe's, man. That's the reason he's so excited to get there.
And Homer took care of the gentleman callers by taking a spear and throwing it through like all 4 or 5 of them with one spear where it nails them to the wall. So when everyone's going, "Aw," they're all impaled going, "Aw," then they all just like lean over like they're dying.
So I want to talk a little bit more before we dive into our Joan of Arc segment, which is the second segment that we're going to talk about. A little bit more about the commentary where they talked about the making of process of these. And I already told you, it's pretty much across the board. The writers love these episodes. The animators find them to be more difficult. However, they did get some notes on this, and there's several like rules they essentially have to follow when they're doing these types of stories. And one of them is kind of difficult because they cannot put the Simpsons characters, specifically the children, in too much peril. But when you're doing historical stories about kids, it turns out most of them are grim as fuck. That's just how the world was back then, and probably we'll find out, like, hundreds of years from now, they'll be like, "What do you mean you were making kids do whatever in 2022? But regardless, they get a lot of notes. And one of the big ones they got was during the Lisa scene where they're burning the Joan of Arc. The Joan of Arc. When they're burning Joan of Arc as Lisa portrays her, they had to be very careful that they didn't put her in too much peril, which it's like you might be thinking, but Miles, we literally saw her burning at the stake. And yes, that's true. But you'll notice that they were very mild flames that seemed to stay almost like magically away from her as they burned. And that was very much done intentionally.
Spoiler alert for the end of this next segment.
I think even people on my educational level know that Joan of Arc gets burned at the stake, bro. I'm not spoiling anything with that one.
To be fair, if there was a child that told you God told them to lead us all to victory against some other overbearing power, would you believe them?
I think we should just, kill off all the creepy kids just to be safe, because statistically speaking, yeah, we're gonna kill some innocent children, but, also statistically speaking, we're gonna save some big world problems by just getting rid of it when we can. I think it's a good trade-off, personally. Who's with me?
I think Ducky just said you killed it. I know it was referencing the song, the singing earlier,
was in reference to that, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's referenced better in this exact.
It works. Yeah, we're just going to assume it was.
Yeah.
The animators also have a lot of rules that they have to follow when they're doing these types of stories, and it can be quite challenging. But it all comes down to, the rule is essentially that the actual character's appearance cannot change. They have to stay the same. What they are wearing or doing can change, but they cannot change the appearance of what the character actually looks like. And basically a good example that they used on the commentary to kind of keep as an example running in the back of their minds, on the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny can wear a dress and he can put on makeup, but he still has to be Bugs Bunny.
Which explains why Homer was gone for 20 years, yet Bart never grew up.
Yeah, exactly, right? So after we cut back to modern time on the couch with the dusty book and the Simpsons family, we learn that there's a second story, and it's the story of Joan of Arc.
Oh, did you say Joan Van Arc?
No, Mom. Joan of Arc.
It's never Joan Van Arc.
And for what it's worth, Joan Van Arc is a very prolific actress who started her career in the 1960s. As I glanced through her IMDb, the biggest role that I saw, the most interesting role I saw, she actually played Spider-Woman in 1979. She was also Lieutenant Erica Johnson on MASH, but probably most notably, she played Valerie Ewing on the show Dallas.
Okay.
So very much the type of actress that Marge would be a fan of is the gist I'm throwing down.
That joke was a deep cut.
That joke is, but it's also like a perfect Marge joke in so many ways, right? I think.
Maybe.
Like, it's the type of stuff.
Like, what sounds like Joan of Arc? Well, Joan Van Arc sounds very similar. Just write it in there.
I bet there's some of the Simpsons writers that were old enough that they were just big MASH fans, so that like very much just like connected easily in my mind. It'd be like if somebody were doing a joke 30 years from now and we're writing for it, we'd probably reference Simpsons characters a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it would just inevitably happen.
The dream job.
But this
like minimum wage as a writer.
This tale of Joan of Arc takes place in a make-believe kingdom called France. The French were fighting the English in the 100 Years' War, which was just called Operation Speedy Resolution back then.
Son, how's it going with the breakfast?
Don't do it, Rich. Don't you do it, Richie. We made a rule, sir. You deal with it.
I'm on it.
Quack, quack, quack. Bartrand, where is your sister Joan? Morning bells are ringing. Morning bells are ringing.
She's talking to her invisible friend. God.
Accurate. And please bless Mama and Papa and Bartrand and Coco Chanel.
Joan of Arc.
God just broke up a little bit there, but the voice of God speaks down to Lisa. I have chosen you to lead the French army to victory over the English invaders.
But I'm just a little girl.
I know. I have 3 eyes. Now get cracking. God wants you. This is her explaining later. Basically, she's explaining that God wants her to lead the French army to victory, which surprises them because they're French. They don't even have a word for victory.
God spoke to me. I must obey.
Joan, give me your desserts.
That's just you, Bart.
But then, like, a real God voice pipes in.
The light comes down from outside.
Joan, give me your desserts.
Yes, sir.
That's going straight to my 5 thighs.
All right, garçons.
We get a fun moment where we're basically counting down, I believe. It's Chief Wiggum in a catapult with a man that they're about to shoot into a castle. But the 2 cops, Eddie and Lou, kind of stop them. Again, they're all dressed like soldiers, but they're just like, you keep switching back between French and English. It's very confusing.
I like when Wiggum's doing the 3, 2, 1. I'm like, huh? No, French for 1. I like
Just fire the damn thing. Whee! They shoot a man into a castle, but he falls just a little bit short and slams into the side of it. And he like kind of groans and comes like limping back, but he's like, my fault, sir. I forgot to tuck my legs. And he loads himself back into the catapult.
So willing.
But
and that's when Lisa runs up.
Just then she pretty much saves this guy from another very hard fall.
Wait, I have been sent to lead the French army to victory.
Oh, really? Yeah, really? And how are you going to do that?
With modern ideas like putting bigger, larger people in the catapult. Or how about rocks?
And everybody's kind of like taken back by this. And I like the soldier in the catapult is like, rock? I don't know how to feel about this.
In Francois.
Yeah. But Lisa yells out to attack, and immediately we see her draw her sword, and it starts clanging. And the rest of the soldiers are just like, wah, should we help her?
Yeah, right behind you, Lou.
Uh-oh, there's my supervisor.
So Wiggum lets Lou run off behind Lisa by himself, and Wiggum looks around, and when he realizes he's being watched by a supervisor, oh, yeah, we need to go help.
Yeah, he only moves when he knows it's directly affecting him, basically.
Exactly.
I cannot remember. I know there's a scene with a little bird and a knife here, or something of that nature.
Lisa's climbing on the outside of the castle up the ladder, And then as she's getting to the top, there's an English soldier there. Well, hello, what's all this,
That's
man?
it.
It's a little bird with a knife, isn't it? And then Lisa stabs him. Oh, what a thing to happen.
And
Blimey. Oh, that's...
yeah, they're actually shocked to see they're brought before the king, who turns out to be Millhouse. And they Mealhouse, and they point out that it is customary to kneel before the king.
I would gladly kneel were you the real king. Because it's actually, what's his face that's pretending to be the king.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I spoiled that. Millhouse is the actual king. At this point, it's oh my god, who is it? It's the Mayor Quimby. Yeah, Mayor Quimby is who it is. Yeah.
Which would make sense visually because he was Zeus in the last scene. So, like, I could see why they did it for this a little bit. But Lisa says that to Quimby, then turns to Millhouse and says, "You are the true Dauphin.
And
this imposter tried to fool me to see if I was truly sent by God.
You are as brainsome as you are toothsome." And then Millhouse explains to Quimby that he can resume his regular duties now.
That would be my pleasure.
And he gets down on all fours and becomes Millhouse's footstool. And he even on command vibrates for him when he's wanting him to. Vibrate for me, footstool. In vibrating voice, loyal subjects, let us drink to Joan of Arc, who will conquer the English and has already conquered my hearts.
God says we should just be friends.
That's Lisa explaining, but we of course get Jester Krusty in the house to speak some truth to power.
I wouldn't say King Millhouse is a loser, but that's the 12th girl he struck out with this week.
Boil him in oil.
So no 10:30 show?
He declares that they need to kill the English. Their concept of individual rights could undermine the power of our beloved tyrants. Yay!
That's on the battlefield the next day with Lisa saying that, which makes the line all the better that it's Lisa saying.
They're attacking again. I thought we had a truce.
Just because you keep saying it doesn't make it so.
And then we hear Lisa going, "Oh my word, you can't stop me. I was sent by God."
And then Willie grabs her and puts her in a sack.
Which this is an interesting thing here, because Willie claims that he was sent by God to fight for the English, but
not yet.
Willie's Scottish.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but Miles, if you remember the story of William Wallace, there was a time when Scotland was a part of England.
Oh Lord, history has failed me again.
I don't know the order of operations on which war came
first. I know it's PEMDAS. It's PEMDAS, so I know this one.
But there was a time when Scotland was a part of England.
Interesting. Well, Lisa, or Joan, if you will, is caught, and they decide that they are going to burn her! Burn her!
Oh.
But the rest of the crowd declares, "Don't burn her. She's just an innocent child. Burn this guy."
Well, who's this guy?
Not important, apparently, because Marge is there encouraging Lisa, or again, Joan, to just renounce her faith and save herself.
Instead of Bart. Don't worry, beloved parents. God won't let anything happen to me.
Huh? And she's as surprised as anybody when the flames start burning at her feet. But again, not in too threatening of a manner, according to the regulations on TV and whatnot.
You're getting kind of hot around here.
And this is how we actually end the story. We cut back to modern day, and they're like, "What happened, Dad? They didn't really burn her, did they?"
Of course they didn't, honey.
Just then, Sir Lancelot rode up on a white horse and saved Joan of Arc. They got married and lived in a spaceship. The end.
And then Marge, rips the page where Joan is killed out of the book and eats it.
This was Marge essentially just doing the censoring, and she decided that, Homer was just going to read it as is, and, we were going to hear about, this little girl burning at the stake, but Marge is like, no, that didn't happen.
And then she's like, well, that was easier to chew than that Bambi video.
And then we cut to the story that Richie said he was most excited about. It's the William Shakespeare tale Hamlet.
Oh, man. Somebody just scared the crap out of me, Miles. They said they couldn't hear us the whole time, but it was his own damn fault.
Oh my god, yeah, thanks for giving us heart palpitations like Homer. Doe is right, but glad you can hear us now.
Yeah.
You're just in time for the third story.
For the yeah.
Dad, these old stories can't compare with our modern super writers. Stephen Bonchko could kick Shakespeare's ass. Look, this story is more interesting than that, don't you think?
It starts with Hamlet's father getting murdered.
Cool. Does he get to marry his mom?
I don't know, but that would be hot.
Once upon a time,
that'd be really funny if we did it in unison the whole time. Once upon a time, there was a young prince of Denmark.
Hamlet, avenge me!
Dad?
Yes?
I have returned from the dead.
Looks like you returned from the buffet.
Why, you little... And he tries to choke him, but he's dead, so his hands are going out. Don't! My son... I have some shocking news. I was murdered. Murdered, I tells you. Really? Behold, as I slept, your Uncle Claudius poured poison in my ear. Poison most foul. So he could marry your mother and become the king.
Yeah, that was quite a weekend.
Now you must avenge me. Avenge me!
How?
I don't know. Surprise me. Surprise me!
Could that fat ghost be telling the truth? First, I've got to get Uncle Claudius to confess.
Then he doesn't jump to conclusions. He's going to try to get a confession.
But then he's going to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then another ghostly reminder.
It's cold outside. You'll need a sweater. A sweater! And
we cut back to the town where we hear the end. It's a classic thing where you come into like the end of a joke. And if your idea of a first date is burning down her village, you might just be a Viking.
That's what I get for sitting up front, eh?
They're like a comedy show. That's exactly what a Viking sounds like, for sure.
The whole Norse thing going on.
Ducky asked if we've ever gotten any of the voice actors on the show, and I feel like we do such a good job that just feels unnecessary.
Yeah. Nobody even knows who the voice actors of the show are.
Yeah, do they? I thought it was done digitally in studio for like the last 3 decades. No, we've had a lot of the writers of the show. We have not had any of the voice actors, but it's very, very, very much on our
Actually, Ducky, I'm going to tease and say maybe we did, and you should go back and listen to each episode, all 318 episodes before this one, to check and see if we're lying to you.
I mean, technically speaking, a person that we've had on the show has done a voice on the episode.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yes, to answer your question. I take everything I said back. We'll edit that out. I think they make a reference to because that wasn't Krusty that did that joke, because he had already been killed.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, was it? Okay. And then they're like,
that was different. That was Joan of Arc where he got killed.
There you go.
That's a different one now.
I love these gestures. They're exactly what I need to forget about my first husband.
Yeah, I really miss the old guy. It was all I could do to put on his jewels and score with his wife every night.
And Bart...
Oh, how you doing, kid? Nice to see you.
Now, we would like to warn you, our performances tend to make audience members blurt out hidden secrets.
And Mo's like, oh boy.
Haha! Methinks the play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.
Very famous line.
I assume the way it's written, that's gotta be Shakespearean.
Yeah, and I believe that's word for word right out of the script. Catch my conscience? What? You're not supposed to hear me. Oh, that's part 2.
That's a soliloquy.
Okay, well, I'll do a soliloquy too. Note to self. Kill that kid.
Kill that kid. All right, we're going to open up with a little improv. Somebody shout out a location.
This castle.
Okay, how about an occupation?
Usurper of the throne.
See, and this is why I know improv is bullshit, because they say that every show is unique, but I've definitely seen this.
And
finally, I need an object.
I think I heard ear poison.
Oh my god. So basically Bart has set up, again, after they very blatantly said that this is the type of show that makes people accidentally give out secrets, that they've pretty much set the clue envelope. If we were playing that game, he just put all 3 of the correct answers out for the public ear.
But Mo doesn't care. He's got a plan. Hey, do you have diarrhea? I have diarrhea.
That will get you out of most situations, to be fair. Sit down. Wait a minute. This is where the plays, or the improv, is happening. And Mo blurts out, he's like, hey, I didn't use that much poison. I mean, I didn't use that much poi, son, at the Royal Luau.
Daddy, it's true. Uncle Claudius murdered you.
Oh, great. Now Hamlet's acting crazy.
This is Lisa playing Ophelia right now.
Yeah, and she takes it serious, because nobody out crazies Ophelia.
Hey, nani nani with a hoo and a ha and a nani nani hey. And then she literally cartwheels out the window and splashes, because, that's essentially what happens to her in the play. I mean, a few other little things in there, but yeah. They find her dead out in a little pool, pond, lake thing.
This is the point where Bart is ready to avenge his father's death, and he actually has a sword, and he's running upon Mo, or the new king. And Marge is like, what did I tell you about running with swords?
Someone's behind the curtain. It could be Claudius. Only one way to find out.
Stab! Oh, Polonius?
What are you doing behind the curtain?
I hide behind curtains because I have a fear of getting stabbed.
And then Ralph's there with him, too.
Oh, this is Wiggum, yeah, his dad. So Ralph's dad has just got stabbed. He's like, Daddy's stomach is crying.
Laertes, you gotta do a special big boy job for Daddy. I need you to avenge my death.
I like revenging. I'm gonna kill Hamlet. Here's my mad face. Roar!
And this is cutting to the duel. So Laertes has challenged Hamlet to a duel.
I like that they just laughed it off as like, cute kid. I think it's Wiggum before he dies. Cute kid.
No, that's actually Mo. He's fighting for Mo there at this point. So he says, cute kid, but just in case you don't kill Hamlet, I put some poison on the food, on the drapes, even on Rose and Carl and Gildan Lenny here.
I love this. So they poison Lenny and Carl are so excited. They're like, hey, we're gonna kill these guys. And they give each other a high five. Booyah! Oh, and they both drop dead.
Now, Hamlet, you know the rules. Laertes here gets one practice stab.
And Ralph completely whiffs.
Oh, boy.
Did I get that one wrong? Or did I bet on the wrong horse?
He literally takes the sword and goes right into his own belly.
Now there's nothing to stop me from getting my vengeance.
You sure you don't want a nice piece of fish? Or to finger the drapes a little?
This ends here.
And he stabs Mo.
And
remember me as a peacemaker.
Which he was not at any point during his very short-lived king reign. What?
His
time
reign.
on the throne? Yeah, his reign. And now to celebrate life. Whoa, bloody floor.
And Bart slips on a puddle of blood on the floor and somehow dies from the, I guess, concussion that he suffers when his head hits the floor. It's a whole Gwen Stacy thing. You get it.
And then Marge comes upon this whole situation and she's just like, ugh, it's such a mess. There's no way I'm cleaning this up. So she just dies too.
She maces herself in the head.
And that's Homer. We cut back to modern day Homer, who grunts, slams the book and says, and that's the greatest thing ever written.
Are you crazy? I can't believe a play where every character is murdered could be so boring.
Son, it's not only a great play, but it also became a great movie called Ghostbusters.
If we're not in sync, Ghostbusters!
And Richie, I hate this ending. I hate it so much. And I was hoping that they would talk about it on the commentary, and they did. And this is the piece of information that I was very excited about, because it goes back to a running theme that we've been talking about since the beginning of this season. This was entirely made. The reason they went with this very absurd, just like cut to the Ghostbusters for no reason ending, is because they were operating with a running order at this time that every episode had to have just a very happy ending. And that was entirely because this is still living in a very close to right after 9/11 world. So because of the events of September 11th, it was important to them that everything ended in a lighthearted manner. And even if it was nonsensical, the idea of the Simpsons dancing and singing was just a happy-go-lucky thing to have the credits roll on. But I just think it's interesting that this is now, approximately 6 months removed from that terrorist attack, and it's still directly impacting the creative team behind the show. So,
why didn't they just switch the episodes? Like, they could have done the Odyssey last.
Honestly, that's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that, but they had the rights to the song, or they just liked the song, or for whatever reason they went to this song, and they liked the idea of the Simpsons dancing to close the show. And the whole thing was absurd and didn't matter, to your point. Like, it's a 3-part episode that really in no way impacts the rest of the show.
Well, and it's also, I guess, the structure of the in-between parts where they're talking about the stories, and then they'd have to reorder that, and that could just become a headache and a nightmare, so...
Yeah, that's also very, very true. But that does bring us to the end of Tales from the Public Domain, and to the end of our third act and our episode. So, Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to talk about for this episode today?
Yeah, I wrote down what it said on the bottle of ear poison. It said
ear poison.
Do not get in eyes. So
that's funny.
I thought that was a stupid joke that made me laugh forever. But I feel like I just want to put out in the world, because I know nobody reads in this day and age, but history in general and these stories are actually really good reads. And I know Shakespeare is tough for people, and with Shakespeare, it definitely helps to have a teacher that's passionate about it, describing stuff to you. I mean, this dude literally created, if he was real, created most of our known language today. So, there's a lot of fascinating stuff around Shakespeare, and I'm very fascinated with Greek mythology as well. So, I didn't love this episode. It definitely upped my enjoyment because I'm familiar with the stories, but, it basically brought the episode up to, it was moderately enjoyable for me, is essentially where it brought it up.
Moderately enjoyable is a pretty solid place to be, honestly.
I can definitely see where I totally get where you're coming from with how this episode made you feel, but I just want to stress that these are really good stories, and I hope years from now people are still reading or at least talking about these kinds of things, because I just think they're great. It's really cool and interesting, and there's a lot of stuff there for you to enjoy. And I'm not even a big reader myself, but I definitely think the Odyssey and Hamlet are two things people should try and enjoy. Joan of Arc, watch the Mila Jovovich.
You heard it here. Richie does not support women-led roles, but all the other stuff you saw today, you should definitely check out.
She was trying to kill all these people for an overbearing tyrant. Come on.
The only other thing that we missed that I just checked on from the trivia that I would like to say is that in the first segment there is a reference to "Do the Bard Man," which the Bard is the reference to to Shakespeare himself, and of course, "Do the Bard Man" was a very popular song that came out featuring Michael Jackson in the early years of The Simpsons.
Oh, I also wanted to point out I thought it was impressive that Homer could actually pronounce Odysseus.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I think they would have come up with a funny way for him to say that.
Maybe they tried and it didn't work.
It's always possible. That is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly review show, but as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for anybody who tuned in on Twitch. Ducky, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Raph, I know you came by. Anybody else, we'd love for you to come back again. We're going to be doing
whoever this Meds Riot is,
congratulations. That's Emily, she's on here too.
I know who.
I didn't see her. Make
sure you follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off all over social media. Definitely make sure you follow him and subscribe on Twitch. You can follow me at not Mr. Most Days Off. Holy crap, what's my name? I'm at the Wiz_kid23.
You just follow me twice.
Yeah, just follow Mouse twice. That'll work better for you anyways. But most importantly, make sure you follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That is DIDDLY.
Richie and I will be back again for our next Simpsons episode, which is going to be Blame It on Lisa. But I think...
You got to plug it at least once.
I think that we're going to have to take a break at some point and have a Best Darn Everything. Maybe over another show that we both love so dearly that just so happened to come out this week of my birthday in mid-September. You'll have to tune in next week and find out.
Oh, man. Boy, did you guys bet on the wrong horse watching this.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.